Hello and welcome to the Management Channel. We're going to be looking at leadership traits, style of management, and we're also going to be seeing the situational style of leadership. So we're looking at two different styles here. Our objectives, first of all, is the importance of leadership. Look at over what are leadership traits. We're going to take the leadership versus management traits tour. Get 5 types of leadership power, a look at the trait approach, and learn about the situational approach. So, leadership trait theorists attempt to determine a list of distinctive characteristics that account for a person who's a leader to be effective. However, there was no good way in identifying a universal set of traits that applied to all leaders who possess this kind of thing. The trait approach assumes a good leader is born, not created. Therefore, felt that leaders have certain traits. One of the first systematic attempts to study leadership was the trait approach. It was the great man theory in the early 1900s, which focuses on identifying innate qualities and characteristics possessed by great social, political, and military leaders. Multiple studies conducted through history have shown this. In the 1930s and 50s, traits interacting with situational demands on leaders. In the 1970s to 90s, it was a revival of critical role of traits in leader effectiveness. And pretty much today, there are 5 major leadership traits: intelligence, self-confidence, determination, integrity, and sociability. If you'd like to read further into each one of these, please feel free to pause. The traits that were figured that were needed, either possess or cultivate, to be served by others as a leader, is intelligence, having verbal, perceptual, and reasoning capabilities; self-confidence, certainty about one's own competency and skills; determination, the desire to get the job done; initiative, persistence, and their self-drive; integrity, the quality of honesty and trustworthiness; and sociability, the leader's inclination to seek out pleasant social relationships. The main 5 personality factors are neuroticism, extroversion, openness, agreeableness, and conscientiousness. Take a moment to read through the definitions. Pause if you need to. So there's a strong relationship between personality traits and effective leadership. The primary factor most strongly associated with leadership is extroversion. Conscientiousness is the second most important factor, followed by openness, low neuroticism, and then agreeableness, only weakly related to leadership. You don't want to be too agreeable. Emotional intelligence and leadership, the ability to perceive and the underlying premise. Apply emotion to life's tasks. Reason and understand emotions. Express emotions openly. Use emotions to facilitate thinking. And manage emotions within oneself and relationships. Remember, never show anger or frustration. The underlying premise is that people who are more sensitive to their emotions and their impact on others will become more effective leaders. In the focus of the trait approach, the focus exclusively on what trait leaders exhibit and who has these traits. Personality assessments are something that organizations use to find the right people. The assumption is it'll increase organizational effectiveness. They specify characteristics or traits for specific positions, like a personality assessment measures for fit, instruments using like the LTQ or the Myers-Briggs survey. Strengths of the trait approach are initiatively appealing because the perception that leaders are different in that they possess special traits. People need to view leaders as gifted. The highlights: The leadership component in the leadership process has a deeper level understanding of how leader personality are related to their process. It provides a benchmark for what to look for in a leader. Criticisms are that it fails to delimit a definitive list of leadership traits. Endless lists have emerged. And it doesn't take into account situational effects. Leaders in one situation may not be a good leader in another situation. The list of the most important leadership traits is highly subjective. There is much subjective experience and observations serving as a basis for identified leadership traits. The research fails to look at traits in relationship to leadership outcomes, and it's not very useful for training or development. The trait approach application is it provides direction as to which traits are good to have if one aspires to be a great leader. Through various tests and questionnaires, individuals can determine whether they have the select leadership traits and if they can pinpoint their strengths and weaknesses. Leadership traits are intelligence, self-confidence, determination, integrity, and sociability. It can be used by managers to assess where they stand within their organization and what is needed to strengthen their position. And now we're going to look at the situational leadership approach. This focuses on leadership in various situations. Leaders have to match their style to the competence and commitment of their subordinates. It emphasizes adapting your style to the situation in which you lead. Assumption is that each instance is unique and different. Therefore, it requires unique management. What makes a leader successful at one task does not necessarily make them successful at every task. It depends on the person and the situation that they are facing. Two primary aspects of situational approach: directive and supportive behavior. Directive is help group members to achieve goals by one-way communication by giving directions, establishing goals and how to achieve them, defining the roles of the members, and the method of evaluation is used on a defined timeline. The supportive measure assists group members via two-way communication to help them feel comfortable with themselves, their coworkers, and the task situation. Thus, the leader asks for input, does problem solving, praises, and listens to its members. In the situational leadership style, there's directing, high directive, low supportive. Leader focuses on communication of achievement. Leader spends less time using supportive behaviors and more guiding and directing. Now, mind you, situational means that you change your style of management depending on your situation. In the coaching, you're highly directive and highly supportive. Leader focuses communication on both goal achievement and supporting subordinates' socio-emotional needs. Leader involvement through encouragement and soliciting the subordinates' input. In S3, the supporting, the leader does not focus on the goals. Supportive develop employee skills in accomplishing the task. Leader delegates day-to-day decision-making control and available to facilitate problem solving. And in the delegating stage, the leader offers less task input and social support. Leader is not as involved in planning or control of details, and he gives subordinates control and refrains from intervention. So, situational leader development levels: the degree to which subordinates have the competence and commitment necessary to accomplish a task or activity. So it depends which style you use, depending on how competent your subordinate is. In D1, it's low competence but a high commitment. In D2, it's some competence and low commitment. D3, mod-high competence, moderate to high, and low commitment. And in D4, it's high competence and high commitment. So in the employee's developmental level, D1, low competence, high commitment, the leadership style is directing, high directive, low supportive. In D2, it's more coaching, high directive, high supportive. In D3, supporting, high supportive, but low directive. And finally, in D4, delegating, low supportive and low directive. The situational approach requires leaders demonstrate a strong degree of flexibility in their leadership style. It assumes subordinates are able to grow and develop in both commitment and competence. Leader effectiveness depends on the ability to assess subordinates' developmental position and adapting his or her leadership style to match the level of the subordinate development. In any given task, the leader has two tasks: diagnose the situation, identify the development level of the employee. Ask questions like, what is the task subordinates are being asked to perform? How complicated is it? What is the employee's skill set? And do they have a desire to complete it? Second task, to prescribe leadership style in the SLII model. Leadership style must correspond to the employee's developmental level. It's perceived as a credible model for training employees to help them become more effective leaders. It's a straightforward approach that is easily understood and applied to a variety of settings. It defines what you should and should not do in various situations. And it stresses that effective leaders can change their style based on the task requirements and the subordinate level of needs. Weakness to this: it fails to address issue of one-to-one versus group leadership. It does not account for how particular demographics influence the leader-subordinate model. And it does not account for how commitment itself varies and why. The application is straightforward. Nature makes it practical for managers to apply. The application in virtually all types of organizations and level of management and organizations. It's a good approach. You have to vary your management style in relation to the task and in relation to the ability of your employees. So we thank you for looking at the leadership traits approach and the situational approach, and there are many more leadership styles. Hope you'll pursue further. Thank you. Have a great day.